I'm Corey Proffitt-Boyd, and this is Say It Anyway.
Say it anyway with Corey Proffitt-Boyd. Say it anyway. Say it anyway with Corey Proffitt-Boyd. Say it anyway.
Welcome back to Say It Anyway. Today we're talking about something that sounds incredibly simple, but for some reason, it's one of the hardest things many of us ever learn. What we're talking about is the simple concept that you are allowed to be you. But as simple as it sounds, why does it take so many of us decades to figure it out? Why do we spend years trying to become a version of ourselves that we think other people will approve of? And why does it feel so rebellious when we finally decide to just be who we are? Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it with Corey Proffitt-Boyd.
I think the biggest problem is that most of us are living our lives under the supervision of what I call the committee. You know, the committee. It's a group of people who exist entirely in your imagination. And yet somehow they run your life. We believe they tell us things like, don't wear that, don't say that, don't cut your hair, don't grow your hair, don't wear hair, don't be so loud. Don't be too quiet. But the funny part is, the committee doesn't actually exist. The people you're worried about aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are, because they're busy doing the same thing. They're worried about themselves. They're wondering if they look weird, if they said the wrong thing, or if they have spinach in their teeth from lunch. Meanwhile, we're over here conducting a full board meeting about whether or not we should wear the shirt that we just spent an hour picking out. And most of us are exposed to this type of thinking from a very early age. There's no question I learned pretty early in life what it felt like to be different. I grew up in a small Kentucky town, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody. And if they don't know you personally, they know your family. I was openly gay all through high school. Now, let me tell you something. That'll teach you pretty quickly that not everybody is going to approve of who you are. But as difficult as it was, I realized something important. I could spend my entire life trying to make everybody comfortable, or I could spend my life actually living, because those are two very different things. And trust me, if you wait until everybody approves of you, you're going to be waiting a very long time. But it's hard to be unapologetically yourself because one of the strangest things we do as human beings is apologize for things that really don't require an apology. We say things like, sorry, I'm talking too much, or sorry, I like this, or sorry, I don't like that, or sorry, I need some time alone. But we constantly apologize. At this point, some people are apologizing just for existing. It's like walking into a room and saying, sorry, everybody. Sorry about all this person. No, stop it. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to have opinions, laugh loudly, cry, be excited about things. And most importantly, you are allowed to enjoy your life. But can we also talk about how much energy people spend hiding harmless things they enjoy? Maybe somebody loves birds, but they're embarrassed. Why? Birds are free entertainment. Somebody collects old lunchboxes. Someone gardens. Another person crochets. Somebody watches the same TV series every year. And somehow we're all acting like these things are secrets that we shouldn't tell anybody. Listen, the world is on fire half the time. I mean, if collecting ceramic frogs brings you joy, then you better collect those frogs. Build them a tiny frog mansion. Live your truth. For example, several years ago, I lost most of my hair, and I wear a hair system. Some people call it a toupee. Some people call it a hairpiece. I call it none of your business. But here's the thing. For a little while, I worried about what people would think. And then one day I realized the people who cared didn't matter to me anyway, and the people who mattered to me didn't seem to care. So, most people were too busy worrying about their own insecurities to focus on mine. And what a freeing realization. But the truth is, everybody's carrying something. And the moment you stop trying to hide every imperfect thing about yourself, life gets so much better. Starting this podcast was another example. Because anytime you create something, somebody's going to have an opinion. Probably everybody's going to have an opinion. Some people will love my voice. Some people will hate my voice. Some people will think my ideas are brilliant, and some will think they're ridiculous. And you know what? They're all allowed to think that, just like I'm allowed to say it anyway. Because the goal isn't universal approval. The goal is authenticity and to try to help other people feel comfortable living in their own truth. One of the things I love most about watching people get older is that most of them eventually stop asking permission to be who they are. As years go by, you start to see people become themselves, really become themselves. Suddenly they're wearing bright colors, taking art classes, traveling, getting tattoos, growing gardens, adopting rescue dogs, just actually living. And the funny part? Most of the things they were afraid to do in their 20s would have been perfectly fine all along. So if you're listening today and you've been waiting for permission, here it is. You don't need permission to be yourself. You don't need approval to enjoy your life, and you don't need a unanimous vote from the committee. You don't need to shrink yourself or explain yourself. You don't need to apologize for being exactly who you are. The world doesn't need another copy of somebody else. It already has those. It only gets one of you. And whether you're loud or quiet, outgoing or shy, perfectly polished or beautifully messy, you're allowed to be you. Not when everybody agrees, not after you've earned it, but today, right now, exactly as you are. Thank you so much for listening to Say It Anyway with Corey Proffitt-Boyd. And remember, the people who love you most aren't looking for a polished version of you. They're looking for the real thing. So stop asking permission, stop consulting the committee, and go be yourself. I'm Corey Proffitt-Boyd, and until next time, say it anyway.
Say it anyway with Corey Proffitt-Boyd. Say it anyway. Say it anyway with Corey Proffitt-Boyd. Say